Oh, yeah. Now it goes to my phone.
Good morning. So we're back on the record. Okay, good morning to everyone this morning. Glad that you all made it back. All the eyes seem to be wide open, which is very, very good. So as is our practice, and I think probably because of law, because this is a public meeting, we'll ask for any public comment on any issue before the into the purview of the PSC, other than what we're dealing with here. Any public comment in the room? Any public comment online? Seeing none, we'll proceed with the hearing this morning. I believe where we left off is Ms. Garrett was and had some witnesses this morning. Are they ready at this time?
Yes, Commissioner O'Donnell, I have Robert Emmons will be MT Rojas next week.
Okay, before that, the attorney has a question about one of the other witnesses.
Yes. Yesterday, Mackenzie stated they had a witness that may need to go out of order today. Is that correct?
We have two witnesses that may need to go out of order at the end of the day today. And so and we discussed it with the Republic's counsel. I think we'll be able to coordinate it. My able assistant who has their names and the information is birthing puppies. And so she'll be in later to help me give you names, but I don't have them right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your witness is having puppies? I doubt that that's a credible witness. Thank you. Good start to the day. Ms. Garrett.
And at this time, MT Rojas will call Robert Emmons to the stand.
Was Mr. Emmons sworn yesterday?
He was not.
Okay. Any other witnesses here today who were not sworn yesterday? Please rise. Raise your right hand. Do you swear that all the testimony you're about to give today is the truth and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you. Great.
Mr. Emmons, can you state and spell your name for the court recording?
Robert Emmons.
Excuse me, is that microphone really working? It doesn't seem to be.
I don't think they're on. Is there switch?
Not sure how she turned it on yesterday.
Is it?
They were just on yesterday. Yeah. You're on.
You,
Yesterday.
okay.
No, I checked this.
She's going to find out.
Yeah.
My technological skills are not what we should realize.
So where there's a word on there, can you press that word? Maybe that's the switch that turns it on.
That's what I was thinking.
Usually it turns it off when it's on so that you can speak privately.
Okay. But it's not a button at all.
Not that I can.
Okay.
Are you sure they're off? If you just tried speaking. No. Yeah, they're off. Okay.
Okay.
That sounded good.
I'm gonna break the.
See what the ink writing is.
On the side. You know, here we have a resident.
I can maybe read it. Oh, potential.
We got it.
Okay. Thank you.
Tomorrow.
I know, it felt different, so.
So are we coming through on the system, system like, okay, very good, we're all set. Thank you, Ms. Carey.
Robert, can you say and spell your name for the record?
Robert Evans, last name EMMONS,
Mr. Evans, where do you live?
5544 Shepherd Road in Shepherd,
And how long have you lived there?
21 years.
Do you know John Behrens?
I do.
How do you know John?
We're from the same community. Our kids play football together. It's a small community, so everybody pretty much knows everybody.
How long have you known him?
10 years.
And how did you learn about MT Roloff's application to the Public Service Commission?
One day we were at football practice and I heard him talking about it, and I heard him say that this was last year, that he was working on putting a business together.
Do you recall what time of year that was? Was it fall?
Late fall, yeah, late
Football
fall.
season? What do you do for work currently?
Worked for Cobb Construction, truck driver.
And how long have you been doing that?
I started February 1st with Cobb.
And do you have a commercial driver's license?
I did Class A.
And how long have you had that?
23 years.
Just a little bit. Before you started working for COP, where did you work?
I worked for Republic Services,
And how long did you work for Republic?
just under 4 years.
And what did you do for Republic Service?
Drove roll off, the truck and trailers, what the classification was, but I did roll off services.
Where did you work before you got the job with Republic?
B&L Scales,
Okay, and before B&L Scales?
Cobb Construction.
Why did you leave B&L Scales to go to Republic?
Because I had hip replacement surgery and I couldn't carry the weights anymore without the one on my hip again, so I had to find a job that was not carrying weights.
When did you start working for Republic?
It was May of 2020,
And when did you leave?
end of January 29th, 2024.
So when you first started at Republic, what was your experience like working for them?
When I first started, the people that I worked for were really organized. They had, their customer service was extraordinary. They had control of the employee that they work for, or that worked for them. They had to, they had qualifications where they had to leave at a certain time. They had, more control of the business that was going on with customer service, that kind of stuff, that, you know, they held the drivers accountable for their customer, because that's who pretty much runs their customer service.
Over the course of your employment with Republic, did you drive different routes?
Yes.
Which one?
So when I first started for Republic, I was a spare trailer driver. So any place that I could get a trailer into, the wind farms, people that had 2 boxes, I'd go and pick them up because I was pulling a trailer. From there, a position opened where I was doing municipal accounts. So my daily position was going to round up and big timber most of my days. There's times that I had to go to the mines. But mainly it was between big timber and roundup.
Excuse me for clarification, was that roll-offs also, or was that?
Yes, that was rolled off. Yep. And then I took a 9-month into a year, 2 years into it, I went to do cardboard for a while, and I was doing a front load. Where for 9 months, I did the round around buildings and did cardboard at all the business areas. And then I went back to roll off for the last couple months I worked there.
Do those, when you switched up routes, do those involve different vehicles, or are you driving the same vehicle all the time?
I was driving the same vehicle for most of the time. When I first started, I had to bounce from truck to truck because they were doing services or doing different things on those. But then once you got into a truck and it became your truck, you stayed in that truck.
And what kind of, for the most part, what kind of truck did you drive?
When I first started, they were older trucks. They were trucks that had millions, about 1 million miles on them. After about a year of working at Republic, they upgraded their equipment to newer Peterbilts. They ordered a new fleet that came in, so we ended up driving Peterbilts that were new.
You mentioned the mines. Can you tell me, what do you mean when you say that?
Spotty Stillwater, Signal Peak, Decker Coal, those are the underground coal mines that were that Republic services in that area.
So would you go to all of those mines? This will tell you about my knowledge of Montana geography.
No, so depending on when, like Spotty Stillwater wasn't every day. So when I first started, I would fill in if the guy that usually covers what was gone. I go up there and cover for him. Or Signal Peak is supposed to be, they wanted service whenever they call in, which is usually every day. And the other ones were call in, so it was in the morning I would get my paperwork and it would tell me which 2 areas I was going to. That's how I would every day where I was going.
Did you have a supervisor?
I do.
Who was that?
When I first started, it was Kyle Lerman was my supervisor, and he was there for about 1.5 years, and then he left. And then they had a period in there that we didn't have a supervisor. It was waiting to get one hired, and then it ended up being there were so many supervisors that we've had in the last 4 years. So then,
Is it, with Kyle was the first one?
yes,
And what was his position? Do you know what his title was?
roll-off supervisor.
And so every time it changed, was it still someone moving into that roll-off supervisor position?
Yes,
And do you know how many times that changed while you were there?
4 times.
4 times? Okay. Did you ever have any disciplinary action against you while you were working for Republic?
No, I did not.
Ever have any accidents?
No, I did not.
What about traffic citations?
No traffic citations, no rolling tickets.
Did you get an award from the company while you were driving truck?
I did, I got Republic, gave me a customer zeal, which is above and beyond, going above and beyond for my customers and making sure that they are happy. That was when I was doing, when I moved from my roll-off and then I went to cardboard. Those are the two that I kept I turned my route around and made it so it was, unhappy customers to happy customers. Pretty much.
Did you have a lot of customer interaction as a driver?
I did, yes.
Did you have an opportunity to interact or work with other Republic employees or drivers and or?
Yeah, on a daily basis, you would work with other roll-off drivers. You would talk to them about different, so when you didn't know a place, you would talk to them to find out where the box might be, the easiest way to get into that box. If there was a code to get into the box, if you had a key, you communicated a lot with the other drivers just to make sure you knew before you got there what was going on.
Who was the general manager for the buildings division when you started in 2020?
Chris, I can't remember his last name, but Chris was the general manager.
Did that change while you were working there? Or was it the same general manager the whole time?
That did change, yes.
Do you know how many
Well,
times?
Okay, so I guess I'm getting mixed up here. So there's so many managers. So the general manager would have been out of Missoula. We had our general manager at first out of Missoula, and then when Missoula decided to give us up and gave us to Great Falls, we got another general manager, and his name was Mark, and he was there for 6 months. And then he moved up the company, and then Chad Bauer, our general manager at that time.
Do you recall when Mr. Bauer took over the general manager role?
Would have been about a year ago, a little over a year ago.
When you were driving for Republic, how many roll-off truck drivers were working simultaneously with you?
There were 9 trucks that they have at their ready to go for roll-off positions. They have 9 trucks. They have a few more people than that because they have extra people that are supposed to, if you're on vacation or if you're sick, they're supposed to cover for you. In that time, they're relief drivers. But they have 9 trucks, but the problem that you run into is they would steal some of those relief drivers to put them into the residential trucks because
You did, okay, so what were we missing?
We were missing on the beat.
Commissioner Bukacek, can you mute yourself immediately, please? I apologize.
Oh, no, you're good.
Sounds like she's.
Mr. Evans,
Yeah.
sorry about that. Drivers, roll-off truck drivers, how many designated, while you were there, and maybe the number changed, but.
Yeah, so there was 9 trucks. If in a perfect world, there were 9 trucks, you had 4 trailer, 2 full-time trailer trucks that pulled trailers. And then you had 2 that were part-time trailer trucks, part-time single trucks, which the singles would be the ones that go out just doing 1 boxes. And then you had 5 single trucks that ran around as singles doing the area that they cover.
How many roll-off drivers?
9 would be the ones that could work at one time.
Okay, so, I just wanted to make sure I prepared her to answer, you probably said it. On a typical day, what time did you arrive in the morning to the yard?
3:15.
And how long were your shifts?
Usually, they would go from about 10 to 12 hours is what my shift, they wanted you to work is up to, they would allow you to work up to 13 and a half hours. And then they would shut you off at 13 and a half hours, but, my day would end up being anywhere from 10 to 12.
And where did you actually report in the morning? Do you recall the address of the location?
4300 State Avenue.
And you got there around 3:50 a.m. When did your day typically end?
Typically it was around 2 o'clock, give or take. Or how far I had to go, you know, it varied on so many variables that you can't really guess exactly what time you were gonna get off.
And was that schedule convenient for you?
It was, it made it so I could do more of my family stuff at home.
So first thing in the morning, first shift, when you get to the yard, what's the first thing that you do?
You go in the office and punch in. Later in, when I worked there, they got tablets. So instead of doing everything by paper, you were able to punch it on your tablet and look through all the places you were going, try to get all the information you needed. You know, you were able to talk to your supervisor and find out if you had any questions or any comments that you needed to take care of at that point in time. You get your safety message, the new information that was going on at that time, and then you head out to your truck.
Did you sometimes have a morning meeting for all the drivers, or?
We would, the morning crew, so each, there was a 4:30 crew, a 5:30 crew. You would have your safety meeting at, the 4:30 crew would have a safety meeting, and it would be different. They would do one a month, where it would be different topics like fire extinguisher safety or triangle safety, or, you know, things that covered in our job.
What's triangle safety?
Well, you know, putting triangles out behind trucks, you know, before I put the triangles out.
If I really thought about that, I would have got it, but, what did you, so after the meeting, that's the next step.
You would go do your pre-trip on your truck. That's when you would go make sure that the stuff that you wrote up on your post-trip the day before was fixed, or you would check to see if there's any new things that happened overnight, like your tire pressure went down or something like that, that you didn't notice the day before, your pre-trip for your DOT policies.
And how do you document the pre-trip?
It was on your tablet, so they had on the tablet, it's got a pre-trip right on it, so you mark off the stuff that is all okay, and then the stuff that isn't okay, you can type a little message that needs to be done, and you send it in. On the pre-trips, if it was stuff that was downable, DOT downable, where you couldn't drive the truck, like the headlights were out or blinkers or something like that, then you'd have to go around the shop and wait for a mechanic to show up to fix that stuff. If it was stuff that you could go through the day without it affecting you, then you just write it up on your post trip and you hope that the mechanics would be able to fix it at the end of the day.
When you do the pre-check, is that on the tablet that you have, or how do you do
It
that?
was on the tablet, yes.
And where does that pre-trip check go? Does it go to the shop or me?
Yes, it prints off, but when you submit, it prints off in the shop.
And do you know how many people work in the shop for Republic?
When I left, there was one mechanic.
One. Any other employees in there?
There were one shop supervisor And then we had a part-time shop manager that covered between Great Falls and Billings.
Did you ever have to drive a truck that you felt was unsafe?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, so for months, we would write up on the truck that ABS and the traction control was not working on the truck. We would get into discussions that is not a download issue on it. But when you're driving an automatic truck and you're pulling a trailer and you don't have traction control, you don't have ABS, you have no way of controlling, especially on when you're going to the mines or when you're on an icy road. You have no way of controlling that trailer because once you tap the brake, the trailer locks up and it slides off into the lane. So we'd write it up and they'd say it's not a downhill issue, you still need to take the truck. So we would always take the truck. Then there were, on the new trucks that we got, the new fleet, not having the proper amount of mechanics to work on it, it took its toll on the trucks. So toward the end, on the new truck, I was driving a 2022, and it had 15 write-ups on the post trip every day. And they never had time to fix the post trip stuff. It would always put parts on order or need time to schedule to work on this truck or repairs pending. It was never, they would fix tires, they would do the stuff that needs to be done, because you can't drive on a flat tire, but you would, if it was not I can't even say it's an engine problem, because they would, the new trucks have liquid DEF that runs through the exhaust. Every other morning, mine would go into DEF region and it would not let me move. I knew that this was a problem. I kept writing it up that it was a problem. They kept telling me they would do a computer region on it and send me on my way. And I was telling them that it was losing power and it was having all sorts of problems. Finally, 2 months after the problem was there, they downed it because it stopped moving totally. The DEF system was not pumping any, the DEF pump was actually out of it. And they let it get that far instead of all the times that I was writing it up where they could clean the injector or clean the nozzle tips and stuff like that, or found a way to order the pump, because the problem they ran into with the pump was.
Objection, this is a narrative at this point. Is there gonna be a question at some point?
I'll ask a question. Are you aware of other drivers also driving trucks for public?
Yes, yeah, they will find stuff that they wrote up the day before and they will look and it wasn't fixed, and so they would down the trucks.
And are you aware of other drivers being instructed to drive downed vehicles?
Yeah,
Are you aware of any problems that resulted from that?
I know of, so I ran into problems of a truck that was downed and they released it out of the shop without fixing it because the regular driver went in for medical and it wasn't my normal truck, so I didn't know it was a write-up, so they sent it out. And it ended up, I was in Ashland and this was the last day I worked for Republic and it tried to kill me. And so when I came back in, I downed it. They still didn't believe that it was correct, so they sent a supervisor out to make sure that it was doing what I told them to, and it was, and they downed it immediately.
Tell me a little bit more about that, just not having any experience myself. You say that it tried to kill you, what happened with the truck?
So when the rails are up on the truck. I got to the position where I was loading the box. I had raised the rails up. The hydraulic valve was leaking by, which was, I had no idea that this was a problem. Cause going up, it would go up with no problems. I got out of the truck, went to the back, and it's got a cable that you gotta straddle the rails on the back to get the hook to go onto the box. So you're in between the box and the rails. So by the time I got back there, I put the hook on, the rails lost their pressure and started coming down. I'm between the rails and the box. I had to jump out of the way, otherwise it was gonna squish me.
Are you aware of other drivers? I'm sorry, are you aware of any other accidents or people being injured as a result of that?
Yes, we, last December, when we had a really bad ice and rainstorm, we had a driver that was training on a truck. There was a driver trainer in the truck and a driver, and she was driving down the interstate. She has been riding up the ABS on the truck for weeks before then. The ABS wasn't working.
Objection, is the witness testifying to something in his personal knowledge? It's not
He
clear.
said he was aware, I asked him if he was aware of it, and so he is testifying to his personal knowledge.
Proceed.
Where was I? The ABS light was on. They were driving down the interstate. They tapped the brakes, put the truck into a slide immediately, and they rolled. So on Republic Services, if you roll a truck, it's automatic termination. No questions asked, you're automatically terminated. This person did not get terminated because of the fact that they were riding up the ABS on the truck. To the after that this happened, I asked, because I was having the same problems with my truck, so I asked Chad Bauer why we're not getting this fixed, and he said it's not a downable issue. And he said that that ABS was not the reason why the truck rolled, it was driver error.
Moving on to a typical day, while you were working for Republic, after you do your pre-trip inspection, what did you do? Did you get assigned a route, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I would have, before I left the office, the night before they would assign you a route. So then you would go out, and before you got to your truck, you had a pre-assigned route that you, being a trailer truck, we do 2 runs a day. So we do 4 boxes. Because of the distance that we covered, we go to Big Timber and back, and then Roundup and back. And that would take about 10 hours, as long as the roads were good.
Were you ever doing on-demand construction?
Yes,
repairs?
when I first started, yes.
And what's a day like when you're doing those?
So, like in the summer, it would be really busy because you would get, if you were a singles driver, you'd get 10 boxes to do a day. And that's a lot of work, because that's like 10 to 12 hours a day. As long as you don't stop, you stay on it, and you didn't run into any problems. There's a couple of drivers that, they would get more, but they would have to rush really hard all day to try to get all that done.
When a construction contractor calls to get a pickup, calls Republic to get an on-demand pickup, how does that work?
Well, the number that they call is in a distribution place. It's not in buildings, it's at some other location, the call center. So when they put it in, then it ends up coming to the computer that day, or then usually it's that day that they send it in, so it gets scheduled the next day. So that's when they know when to put it on your tablet.
And so, is there a local number for Republic ambulance?
It's a local number, but it all goes to the distribution place.
That's not in the.
That's not an accident.
As a driver, how do you get those on-demand construction pickup assignments?
On your tablet, the dispatcher is who puts them on your, and when the dispatcher puts it on, they try to have a truck that's gonna be in the Heights area, or in the West End area, or in Big Timber, or try to give them all the ones for that day, so they're not running all over town. But sometimes you end up, if you start at 4:30, you do a long distance one, so your first one might be all the way in Big Timber or Red Lodge, where you go and bring back to Billings, and then you finish off the rest of your day doing local ones.
So having a construction contractor call this local number that actually routes to a call center somewhere else in the country, and then have that customer service rep assign you on your tablet or send a message to your tablet to have you make a pickup, do you think that's an effective process in your opinion?
It's not, because the customer, they can't get a hold of anybody from here in Billings, no matter how much you try. For a while, I would talk to customers that said that they tried to get a hold of Republic for weeks, trying to get a box to be picked up, and they would talk to people, nobody would show up. I was fueling up my truck one day at a local gas station, and they were doing a remodel, and I actually had a guy come out and say, "Could you?"
Objection.
Did you ever have anyone come, I'll withdraw this, did you ever have anyone come into the office or the yard while you were there, customers come into the yard?
Yes, we had.
Tell me about that.
At least one occasion that I had a customer come in. He was extremely livid that he scheduled a demo and talked to the customer service rep on getting 3 boxes.
Objection. Hearsay.
No, I was, sorry.
He's talking to another person and we're introducing those matters for the truth of the matter asserted. It's textbook hearsay.
But it seems to be that the person was talking to him directly.
Indeed, and yes, sir, and that would be hearsay. If he is introducing the other person's statements and that person is not here to be cross-examined, it would be hearsay.
I'll withdraw.
Okay. That seems bizarre to me, but okay, sorry, it's the law. I get it.
This process with the call-ins to a remote call center, did you ever suggest anything different or do anything different to help customers have better access to local representatives?
I did. On several occasions, I had to, I would talk to the customer that would stop me, and I would have to call my dispatcher and say, "This customer needs a box picked up. What can we do?" And she would say,
Objection, hearsay.
I'm sorry. Who were you talking to? You were saying she said.
"The dispatcher."
Okay,
Withdrawn.
go ahead.
So I was talking, I would call the dispatcher had me give her personal number to the contractor so he could call and get the box picked up.
And was that, in your experience, more effective than having people use the local number that goes to some call center somewhere else?
Yes, the dispatcher actually told me, when I run into situations like this, give out her personal cell phone number, give out the dispatcher's personal cell phone number, so then that way we can get the boxes picked up.
And so, did that change how the division was operating then at that point? Did they adopt that as their new procedure for things?
No, they still stayed with the call center, but when certain people kept the dispatcher's cell phone number so they could try to get a hold of a person instead of going through the call center, because the call center, it could be weeks before you get a box picked up.
You mentioned interacting with customers pretty regularly when you were driving roll-off. Did you generally, and I don't wanna know what people said, but I do wanna know whether did you ever receive feedback from the customers?
Yes, yes, I did.
Was that positive feedback or negative feedback?
Negative feedback. I would be not only on the job that I was getting feedback, but I wore my uniform and I'd go to Walmart or my son's baseball games, and I'd have people come up and start, having disagreement with me because they would see that I was.
Objection, or testifying as to what people were telling him, again.
No.
It's-
I don't think you said anything about what people said.
No, they were just unhappy.
I'm sorry, what were you saying?
That they would come up to me and they'd see what I was wearing and they would be unhappy with the service that they had. They would try to figure out if there's anything else that they could do.
Based on your interactions with customers, specifically roll-off customers, were their needs being met with Republic's roll-off service while you were working there?
No.
Do you have any idea how many containers Republic had, roll-off containers Republic had while you were working there?
No.
Did Republic ever run out of containers while you were a roll-off driver?
Yes, usually in the summer months, we would run out of containers. And it was the drivers, we would have to go and pick up the customer's full one and do a round trip. So we would take it to the landfill, dump it, and go back and drop it off because we didn't have an empty one to swap with. Or if we had a 20-yard that we could pick up and put in the place of the 30-yard, we would do that.
Mr. Chairman, is it fair to say that the condition of those containers deteriorate over time?
Yes,
Does Republic still use those containers if those are damaged or leaking?
yes, they do.
And who decides when a container can no longer be used by Republic?
There's a series of different things that they do, whether the driver says he's not gonna haul it any longer, or the shop says they can't repair it any further. That's when they try to order more boxes. At the beginning of the year, they tried to order, the supervisor or the manager will put in an order for more boxes. A lot of times they will try to put in a higher number, trying to get some, because they never get the ones that they need. They never get the amount of new boxes that they need. It's always cut in half or cut in a quarter because they don't get the new ones.
Do you recall how many times Republic ever run out of containers for roll-off customers?
How many times that happened?
Yeah.
Every summer.
Okay. Just once every summer or sort of on a daily basis?
Daily basis, it would be, it would be weeks where you would be trying to get another one, or you would have one that shows up and the driver would fight over it because when you have to go pick up a full and take it and drop it off, or take it and dump it at the landfill and haul it back, it adds a lot of time to your day. When it's easier that you can just load a 30, go and drop it off, pick it up, and then you have an extra one that you work with all day. When you don't have that, it makes your day extremely longer.
So if a customer calls for Republic or roll-off container and they didn't have any on the yard, what would happen then? And maybe you don't know, you could say you don't know.
I'm really not sure what they do if they don't have any extra, any bins to take them.
Where did you take roll-offs for disposal, the containers for disposal?
To dump,
Yes.
Billings landfill.
And how does that work? How does the landfill work when you go to take a roll-off container to empty it?
So when you drive up onto the scale, they have an inbound scale and an outbound scale. When you drive in, you tell them where you're from or what the address is that you were picking it up from. Then you go up on the hill and you dump it out, and then you come down the hill and there's an exit scale, and they would take the measurements from the two, and that's how they knew how much garbage you had. And then they would give you a ticket at the end. You take a picture with your tablet and go on to your next.
Did you ever leave a full roll-off container in the yard, in Republic's yard without dumping it?
Yes, that's a common thing that they do.
Why would you do that?
In the winter, the drivers do that. If it's frozen, they will put a box in the yard to try to get it to unthaw. There's other ways of doing it instead of having to shovel it out, or instead of having to, they have a probe on a skid steer that's a long bar that you shove in the box. You have to go dump it first, you come back in the yard, you probe it, you go back up to the dump and you dump it. And this could take an extra hour and a half on your day. So instead, the drivers will take and put it in the yard, and place it there for either a warmer day or when they have time to haul it up on a different day to haul it up to the dump.
And how long would those full containers typically stay in the yard?
They try to clean them up at the end of the month. So if if it gets picked up at the beginning, it could sit there for 30 days. And they try to clean it up at the end of the month, so then that way they can do their billing. In the summer time, there has been times that they have sat there longer, and it's been 2 months, and then you're trying to play catch up. That's how some of them end up getting missed. The month before, because you don't have anybody available, or there isn't a truck available to go and dump them at the end of the month. They're still sitting in the yard.
And while you were working for Republic, what's the highest number of full boxes that you observed on the yard at any one time?
There was 28 full boxes.
Do you recall how long those stayed there?
The dates were different, so there could have been ones from 3 or 4 days, or there could have been ones that have been there all 30 days.
And they stayed there for different periods of time, like that cleaned up at different points.
Yes.
Wanted to go back to the vehicles for just a second. You mentioned that drivers would regularly down vehicles for particular issues. On any given day while you were working for Republic, typically how many vehicles would be downed?
That just depended on how many mechanics that we had working at that point in time. There was a rule. There was times that, like in December, there was only 3 trucks up and running. That was total, all roll-off trucks was only 3 trucks. Just because of the not having the parts, not having parts on order, having the stuff, trying to figure out what is wrong with the truck. Because when you only have one mechanic working, he's working from 5 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and he's still doing the best that he can, but he's only one guy.
You mentioned that roll-off, when you were providing roll-off service, occasionally you would go to the Savannah Stillwater mine, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know whether they had a contract with Republic for service or how did that work?
Yeah, they had a contract, for service that they signed and yeah, I don't know if it was yearly or every 2 years.
And what kind of service were they getting?
They would get daily services, sometimes it would be, twice a day services, to the mine.
And were you aware of any issues with the Republic service to the Savani Stillwater mine?
Yes, so roughly 2 years ago, they split, their compactor, bottle is what it's called, it's what the compactor pushes garbage into, they split the side of it out. They asked Republic Services to order another one. It was supposedly on order for 2 years, and they ended up having to order their own because it never showed, the one for Republic Service never showed up.
Do you know who the customer rep was to the Savani Stillwater mine?
Ryan Kaufman,
And was Mr. Kaufman, did he was involved with all of the contract roll-off customers for Republic or do you know?
that I'm not sure.
You were satisfied working for Republic in the beginning?
In the beginning, yes, they were a good company to work for. They tried really hard to take care of their customers.
And what were you getting paid while you were at Republic?
So it was, when I left Republic, I was getting paid $22.68 an hour.
And what are you making now at Cop Construction?
My total package at COP is 46.68
Per hour?
per hour.
So you were satisfied at the beginning. What happened at Republic Services to cause you to leave at the end of January 2024?
Mainly it was the problem that we ran into with the lack of control. So when you have a shop that doesn't fix trucks, they don't order parts. Everything that you write up on your truck, everything that you try to get fixed on your truck, because it's a new truck and you try to make sure that it stays on the road, that it's gonna be safe going down the road. And you can't get anything fixed. It ends up becoming a problem. And it's not a problem for anybody in the office, it's a problem for the driver because he's the one that's driving down the road, driving an unsafe vehicle. So he's the one that's gotta worry about the people that are with him on the road. He's gotta worry about getting home every day. And the more stuff that you wrote up, the more stuff that you talked to the supervisors about, or the even management about, you say, hey, this stuff needs to be fixed. And they were more worried about numbers than they were having the trucks on the road.
Objection, speculation.
It's already on the record. When did you decide?
Okay, objection, speculation, move to strike, really, come on.
Right.
If it's,
You gotta make a timely objection.
I would,
You already answered the question.
yes, and
Answering the question.
hold on.
So apparently, we have to strike that from the record, that response, but you could rephrase the question to avoid that.
What's your opinion of management's primary concern, Republic's management's primary concern?
When I first started, it was safety. Safety was a big thing at Republic. Toward the end, it ended up being more of numbers. We gotta get the amount of garbage picked up so we can have the numbers. That was the main goal. try to get the numbers.
When did you decide to quit?
I brought up the issue that I was having with the truck, the 1st of January. The problems of the trailer not getting fixed, the ABS not getting fixed, nothing was getting fixed on the truck, and they were wanting me to drive. And after months of writing this stuff up, I was just completely frustrated. So I just wrote on a piece of paper right there, give me my 3 weeks notice, and I'm walking out.
And what were those last 3 weeks like for you?
Yeah, it was interesting because that's when they decided to have my truck, my primary truck that I was working on, they decided to have that one taken to Peterbilt because they couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. So that's when they put me in the other truck that the normal driver was going in for back surgery or for a medical issue. And that's when they put me in the one truck that was having problems.
Did you leave because Mr. Barron's promised to give you a job at Cop Construction? Is that why you're in Republic? Did anyone else at Cop try to lure you away from Republic?
No, in fact, I didn't have a job when I gave my 3 week notice, I didn't have a job lined up. I didn't know where I was gonna go. I just knew that for my own sanity, I had to leave.
And when you were at Cop previously, did you work with Mr. Barron's at that point?
I did.
So you had a prior working relationship with him?
We did, yes.
Did we have any communications about your testimony at this hearing before you stopped working at Republic?
No, we did not.
Based on your experience driving for Republic, do you think there is a need for an additional roll-off service provider in the proposed service area?
I do.
Objection calls for a legal conclusion.
Is, in your opinion, I'll withdraw the question, in your opinion, and based on your experience, do you think that there's a need for an additional roll-off service?
Same objection.
That's not calling for a legal conclusion, that's asking his opinion whether or not the services provided by Republic were sufficient. I think that's within his knowledge, it doesn't call for a legal opinion. Just his opinion.
Yes, I do believe that there's definitely a need for more service out there. Just because the area is growing so big, so fast, that there's not a chance that in my opinion, the way that Republic runs, that they're gonna be able to keep up with the 10,000 square miles that they cover.
What's your understanding of, did you have any communications with drivers for Mackenzie, or interactions with Mackenzie Disposal while you were driving the truck?
No, not really. I mean, we'd see each other and wave or at the dump, we'd ask them how their day is and stuff, but nothing really work related.
Did you know whether Republic customers switched to the roll-off customers for Republic switched to Mackenzie during your time there?
Oh, yeah, like a flood.
So Republic lost a lot of customers to Mackenzie. I have no further questions for this witness at this point.
Mr. Forcella will be questioning the witness, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I keep on wanting to say for John.
I'm okay with that.
Mr. Jones?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. My name is Lucas Forcella. I'm the attorney that represents Republic. I kind of want to talk with you about a lot of the topics we're already talking about. Do you prefer Robert or Mr.
Robert.
Robert, okay. So Robert, I understand you, it sounds like you lived in the area for quite a while now, 20 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you slow down just?
Yes, same as yesterday, too much coffee. So, let me slow down. So you have worked, with Republic for about 4 years before you moved to Cop Construction, is that right?
Yes,
And you previously worked for Cop Construction prior to that?
yes.
Okay. In your time with Republic, it sounds like you worked as a roll-off driver for part of the 4 years, but not the whole. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
With the exception of the 9 months or so you were, running the cardboard route, is it fair to say that the rest of it is the roll-off, driving?
Yes.
Now, just to be clear, you're not here testifying on behalf of your current employer, correct? And you're not testifying on behalf of the public, correct?
No.
Just based on your own personal experience. Okay. Prior to this matter, you didn't know, Mr. Buckley Reynolds at all, correct?
His family was our church, but I don't really know Buckley
Okay.
at all.
Okay, fair enough. But you did know Mr. Behrens, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And you knew Mr. Behrens socially as well as professionally?
yeah, our kids play on the same football team.
You had worked with Mr. Behrens at Cop Construction, correct?
I have, yes.
Alright, and you worked together back in what, 2017 to 2020 or thereabouts?
No, it was 2017 and 2018, because I worked, for B&L Skills for, 2.5 years.
Okay, so 17 and 18. Mr. Behrens has worked at Cop Construction longer than you, correct?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so he has seniority over you at Cop?
not really seniority, because we're not even in the, we're not in the same union.
No.
I mean,
Okay,
he's superintendent of his crew, but I'm a truck driver for Cop. I'm not actually, he is just one of the supervisors that I haul ground for.
sure.
Okay.
So he's not your direct supervisor. Is he anywhere above you as a supervisor?
Well,
Meaning, does he direct your work at all?
yes,
Okay. So he can direct you to perform work, depending on the project.
sure.
Okay. Have you ever had to take instructions from him either in the course of a job or at a job site?
Yes,
Okay. Is he currently acting as your supervisor in the project?
yes,
Okay. So, after you decided to leave your employment with Republic, it sounds like then you reached out to Mr. Behrens about returning to work for Cop, is that correct?
yes, after.
After. And about the same time, you had offered to support Mr. Behrens' application by testifying, is that correct?
Well, it was after, the Cop's job was offered to me.
Right,
Yeah.
around the same time.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So, since approaching Mr. Behrens about testifying, you had several conversations with him about, and I'm quoting here, about your experience, observations, and knowledge related to Republic's Billings Division and its existing roll-off operations in the proposed service area, correct?
Yes,
And those conversations included discussions of the service which the customers received, correct?
yes.
Okay, and which customers you served, correct?
No, not really, which, I told him the areas that I went to, I didn't, pretty much tell him exactly which customers that I covered.
Okay, so just only a discussion of the areas?
Yeah, so I'd say Big Timber Roundup, I went to, I went to Red Lodge, it wasn't exact names of who I went to.
Okay, fair enough, thank you. Would you, well, let me pause for a second. You brought up a couple of things in your direct testimony that I wanted to go through. I'll have to bear with me. We're gonna run through these kind of in the order that you spoke to them. So you had talked about a driver with a rollover incident. It sounds like last year, in December 23.
Yes.
Okay. And you had said that there was, that they were not terminated, in connection with that accident.
Right, because the union stepped up.
Well, so just to be clear, you're not an HR representative, you were not an HR representative of the public, correct?
No, I'm not an HR representative.
And you weren't present in the discussions between HR and that employee?
No, it was information
No,
that,
I'll ask you a question. Okay, thanks, I appreciate it. So you weren't present for the discussion and you weren't a member of the HR team, correct?
right,
And you weren't involved with management at Republic,
I'm not, no,
correct? And so you weren't in the management chain for that employee, correct?
no,
So your statement about why they were or were not terminated is not informed by any of those discussions that they might have had, correct?
it came from the general manager when I asked it.
Another thing you talked about, and again, sort of jumping topics here for a moment. So you had talked about calling into the call center, customers in the buildings area, I guess, calling into the call center, and how that process worked. I think I heard you say that they would call into the call center and those customer service representatives would input that request into a computer system. Does that sound correct? Okay. And then that computer system would then provide the request for a scheduled pickup, and that would populate onto your tablet, I guess. Does that sound correct?
No.
Okay. Can you
Yeah,
say
so
something?
they would put it in the computer and then the dispatcher would go through the ones that are in the computer, that are in the computer, and she would designate them which area that was gonna be, and then that's how it ended up on my computer or somebody else's computer.
Sure. Okay, got it, appreciate it, thank you. So there, I missed a step then. So into the computer, dispatcher takes that, inputs it into your tablet, and then that is how the route is created. Yes, okay. I heard you, when you were initially talking about that, saying that that would result in populating onto the tablet and would be scheduled the next day. A moment later in the conversation, I heard you say that it could be weeks between those two events happening. So I just want to make sure we're clear on what you're saying. Which one is it?
Okay, so it depends on where they put that in. So if that person forgot to put it in, which has happened on occasion, the call center.
Okay.
Never put it in, then it could be weeks before the customer called back in, or before they put it in, remembering when it was done. Or it would get put in the computer, but we were already full for that day.
Sure.
Or the next 3 days. Well, so it would get put aside, and it would get put aside, and put aside, and put aside.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now, when we were talking about those scheduling before, I heard you were talking about containers in general. Are you talking about all commercial roll-offs, or are you talking specifically about construction waste and debris?
Please repeat the question, I
Sure.
don't know what you're asking.
Sure. So Republic serves, is it fair to say that Republic serves a great number of customers with roll-offs for varying needs?
Yes,
Okay. And some of those needs include construction waste and debris, correct?
yes,
But some of them are something else,
yes.
correct? Okay, so when you were talking before about the scheduling of roll-off delivery, pickup of roll-off delivery, and the comments you were making about that, was that specific to construction waste and debris? Or was that regarding all roll-offs in general?
All roll-offs in general.
Okay.
Cause unless you go through you don't know what's in them.
You're right, you wouldn't necessarily know, and certainly would not know from the address you're given on your tablet, what it is you're getting. Okay, appreciate it. I think I heard you say, in the course of the direct, that during these runs, if you had a spare box empty and you could bring that to the job site with you, that would shorten your day.
Yes.
As opposed to going out and picking up a full dumpster, emptying it, and then returning it back to the job site, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. But in both of those cases, just to be clear, there would be a dumpster emptied and an empty dumpster replaced at that customer's job site?
Yes.
Frozen boxes to thaw, I wanted to make sure I understood this, so there's the frozen boxes, left to thaw in the yard. Obviously not frozen boxes in the summertime, so we're really only talking about the winter, season.
No, because in the summer, they would have so many runs that they have to do, that they would start.
Specifically as to frozen boxes, sorry.
Yes, frozen boxes.
Frozen boxes,
Winter.
only winter time,
Winter,
right?
yes.
Yeah, okay. And I think the unstated conclusion there is if you were dropping a frozen box at the yard, that meant you were bringing a separate empty container to the back of that customer, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you were talking about the Savani mine and the garbage compactor, was that a fair description? That's not a roll-off container, right? The garbage compactor?
No, well, it is a roll-off. It's just an enclosed, they go on the back of a roll-off truck.
Okay.
They're an enclosed box.
Okay. And that garbage compactor at the Savani mine is used to compact construction waste and debris? Or
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, you talked a little bit about your opinion about management's concerns and how, in your opinion, it shifted from safety to numbers. Again, I think you said this before, you weren't involved in any of those management discussions, though, correct? Okay.
Was that a no?
That was a no, yep.
You weren't present in any of the meetings that they were talking about how to structure their affairs, the business's affairs, that is? No. Okay. Or how to prioritize their actions? Correct?
No.
Okay. Or how to marshal their resources to serve their customers as best they can, is that correct? You weren't present for those management discussions?
I was in the room present when I've heard them say it's better to take and have 200 customers taken care of in residential when they steal a roll-off driver to go do residential garbage, because they'd rather take 200 people and get their garbage picked up and leave the roll-off and have nobody pick up that person's day.
Got it. So just to be clear, when you say steal, what you're talking about is taking a driver that works for Republic and giving them a different priority for that day than otherwise they might have had.
Yeah, taking them out of their line of work that they're supposed to be in and moving them over to the other line of work.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, that's really helpful. So, would you say that your experience at this point allows you to provide a better service to customers, whether it's a COP or Republic, than somebody without your experience?
Yes.
Okay. And safety and training are fairly important in the construction industry, is that fair?
It is, yes.
Okay. Fair to say that safety is equally important to you as somebody who works in that industry?
Yes.
And equally important when operating heavy machinery?
Yes.
And that's true really in the garbage hauling or construction waste and debris hauling industry, as well as the construction industry, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Do winter conditions in Montana affect the level of precaution that is needed to operate the heavy machinery?
They do.
Okay. And if you hired contractors or workers without any experience, do you think that would risk making the work site unsafe? Sure, personally. Do you think employing contractors or workers without any experience, do you think that would risk making the work site unsafe?
No, because you wouldn't hire somebody without any experience, would you? I mean.
That's my question. If you had hired somebody without experience, would that make the work site unsafe?
Without them being trained, yes.
If you had hired contractors or workers similarly with a history of safety issues, do you think that would make the work site unsafe?
Yes.
Okay. Fair to say that punctuality and availability are pretty important when providing service?
Yes,
True for driving truck, whether you're cop or public.
yes, if you see you're gonna be there, yep.
And have you ever missed a day of work for being sick, injured, or some other personal reason?
Yes,
No.
yes.
And when you missed a day of work, did your employer have somebody who stepped in and allowed you the work to continue?
No.
No. So just, I wanna make sure I understood your testimony. At no point in your prior employment, when you've been sick or injured or stepped out for a personal day, there was nobody else available to cover, or nobody did cover your work.
Not,
Is that what I hear you
not
saying?
every time, no. So like, if they didn't have anybody, so when they're short drivers,
I'm not talking about Republic, just in general, ask employers, have had someone stepped in and allowed work to continue?
No.
Okay. In the event that you missed that day of work and there wasn't an employee then, so the work would slow down?
yes,
Okay, or halt completely potentially?
for that truck, if they didn't have anybody to drive the truck.
Sure, okay. Does COP right now have multiples, the same type of equipment that you use on a daily basis at one per breakdown?
Yes,
And does COP have a plan to quickly repair that equipment? To the extent you're aware, anyway, does COP have a plan to repair that equipment in the event something breaks down?
yes,
Okay, and are those aspects of COP's structure important to your role as a driver?
yes.
Okay. Would it surprise you to learn that as of today anyway, one-time roll-off, MT roll-offs only has one employee?
I don't know anything about empty roll of that, no idea.
Okay, you don't, so we're here discussing a company called MT Roll-Off's application to provide construction waste and services. Okay, so we're talking about a company who's applying to provide particular services, and I think you would call it testify by them. Okay, so my question to you is, would it surprise you to know that that company only has one employee? It would not surprise you, okay. What do you think would happen? Assuming that that one employee has a CDL and can drive a truck for them, what do you think would happen? Or what's your opinion of what would happen if MT Roll-Off's only employee was injured, sick, or otherwise unable to work?
I don't know what that's not my job to know what he would do.
Right, I see what you think would happen.
Object, calls for speculation.
Withdrawn.
Sustain.
Would it surprise you to learn that MT Roll-Off's plans to operate in a 5-county area with a single truck?
Would it surprise me?
Yes. No. Okay. Do you, in your opinion, given what you've seen with Republic, and your experience driving truck, would MT Roll-Offs be able to service, when I say a 5-county area, do you understand which 5 counties we're talking about? Okay. So, in your opinion, would MT Roll-Offs be able to service the entire 5-county area with a single truck?
I don't know how long they would have only one single truck, so that's hard, I don't know how long. Well, on the day of opening, yes. A week from then, I don't know.
Okay. And it's, why don't you know? Why is that unclear?
Because you don't know what their customer base is, you don't know how many people are gonna call at that time.
Sure. So it depends on the customer base and who's calling.
Exactly.
And it's fair to say that if a great number of customers call, they would not be able to serve every kind of customers. Okay. If that single truck broke down, would MT Roll-Offs be able to service that 5-county area?
No.
Okay. Are you aware that Buckley Reynolds, the only current employee of MT Roll-Offs, operates a separate freight trucking business called Overhead Enterprises?
I'm gonna object, it's outside the scope of direct.
Sustain.
in your opinion, would, an employee being occupied, driving a truck for a separate business, limit their ability to drive a truck for empty roll-offs at the same time?
I don't think so.
They could drive 2 trucks at the same time, is that your testimony today?
They couldn't drive 2 trucks at the same time, no.
Okay, so if they're driving trucks for a separate company, would that limit their ability to drive truck for empty roll-offs?
It would.
Okay. Would it surprise you to know that empty roll-offs doesn't currently own or lease any vehicles? Okay. Would it surprise you to learn that empty roll-offs currently does not own or lease any roll-off containers?
No.
Okay. Would it surprise you to learn that empty roll-offs has not made any financial investments or plans to acquire equipment?
No, because, can I say why I'm not surprised at any of these?
No, I'll keep asking questions, but
Okay.
I appreciate it, though.
Okay.
Just to be clear, I think I heard you talk about a number of areas. What counties did you operate in while driving for Republic?
So
Let's go within the service area that's proposed, sorry. What counties within Yellowstone, Stillwater, Carbon, Golden Valley, and Muscle Shoals?
on a daily basis or at any time,
During the 4 years that you were at Republic?
all of them.
When's the last time you worked in any of these 5 counties where COP Construction had hired a third party for roll-offs?
I have no idea.
Okay, fair enough. So in your, I'm gonna move back to Republic just for a moment, and then I think we'll wrap this up very quickly. In your time at Republic, you would drive truck to pick up roll-offs, take them to be emptied, and place new roll-offs when you were directed by your manager or supervisor, correct? Okay. You were not involved in deciding whether or not to provide services to a potential customer, correct?
No, I wasn't.
You were involved in deciding whether or not to provide those services?
Yes.
Okay. Were you the, was this a consensus type decision, or was this something that you were involved in the decision-making process and then somebody, a manager or supervisor, ultimately told you where you're going to go for the day?
So at the beginning, I would tell them that a certain place needed to be picked up because they were overloaded with garbage and could not miss them, and they would change the tablet so I could go take care of them because they were out of space.
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
Okay, so we'll use names. Roundup.
Okay.
Would be full. All their bins would be full. They'd have garbage on the ground. I would tell them we have to go service them because they would have a closed building and we need to go take care of them. They would change my tablet and say, okay, we need to go take care of them if all their bins are full.
Okay, so you, just to be clear, you provide information to the management team and then they make a decision accordingly. Is that fair? Okay, so you were not the one making the decision, correct? Okay. So you, as we sit here today, you can't really tell us whether Republic was or was not willing to meet a need because you weren't the one making those decisions, correct?
I don't really know.
Okay, you weren't making the decisions, I think we're just.
Right, yep.
So you can't tell us whether or not the company was or was not willing to meet these particular service needs, because you weren't the one making the decision, correct?
I was the one making the decision, correct, yes.
Okay, so again, just to be clear, so you can't tell us whether or not they were willing to do that or not. Because you weren't the one making the decision.
Right.
Okay, thanks. I think that's all the questions I have for you. I very much appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Singer, you, it's coming on time for Canadian break. Do you wish to, is your time with this witness going to be brief?
Oh, very.
Very good. Proceed, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Thomas Senior. I represent Mackenzie Disposal. Hello.
You didn't say very much about Mackenzie today.
Don't have anything really to say about Mackenzie.
If you said something, would it be positive or negative?
The only thing I know about Mackenzie is I had before I had Republic at my house, I had Mackenzie service. And they were with their dumpsters, with their 4-yard dumpsters. They were right on time. They never had any problems with them.
You're talking residential,
Yes.
not construction.
Yes.
That's all I have, thank you.
And he did say that the Mackenzie drivers, they would wave to each other at the landfill.
That's honest, exactly. I didn't think I needed to repeat that.
Thank you. So for convenience sake, it's been almost an hour and a half. We'll be in recess for 10 minutes until 10:35 off the record. with this witness, have any attorney questions from the PSC?
No questions.
No question. Commissioner?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Lukasek, have their communication issues been solved? Are you with us?
I am. No question, sir.
And I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Ernest. Appreciate it. Oh, is there,
I have a.
redirect? Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Mr. Emmons, does Republic have, a way for employees to make suggestions?
They do, well, they have an open door policy, so, if you have any suggestions, or if you have any, you can talk to supervisors, or you can talk to your, general, or your manager too.
Okay, and Mr. Forcello was asking you, would you be surprised if I told you that MT Roll-Offs only had one truck and one employee, and you asked him if you could tell him why? You weren't surprised. And so why aren't you surprised that MT Roll-Offs doesn't own any containers, doesn't own any trucks, and only has one employee?
Because they're tied up into trying to get this number. Well, I don't know why you would purchase trucks or bins when you don't know if your competitors can allow you to get a number.
I have no further questions for this.
Thank you. Mr. Evans, as far as I'm concerned, you could be permanently excused. I think your supervisor behind you wants you to get back to work. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So, Ms. Garrett, do you have another witness this morning?
So our last witness is a remote witness, Ryan Keelan, and so we're having.
I can't hear you too well.
I'm sorry, my last witness is a remote witness over Zoom, and his name is Ryan Keeland. Staff informed me that they sent him an email this morning. I do believe he got that link. I just need to make sure that he's ready to connect.
Very good, proceed with that. Yeah.
Like he's connecting to audio now. He's on.
He's on. Okay.
Perfect.
This witness, as I recall, has not been sworn.
That's correct, Commissioner O'Donnell. I don't believe he has been sworn.
Okay, what is his name again?
Ryan Keeland.
Mr. Keelan?
Yes.
Will you please? And lift up your right hand. You swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may proceed, Ms. Carey.
Mr. Keeland,
Can you state and spell your name for the court reporter, please?
Ryan, R-Y-A-N, Keeland, K-E-E-L-A-N-D.
And Mr. Keelan, where do you live?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
That's okay. Where do you live, Mr. Keelan?
I live in Belfry, Montana.
What do you do for work?
I have an excavating company in Billings.
And how long have you been running that excavating company?
Since 1998.
And what is the name of your company?
Its name now is Ryan Keeland Excavation.
What kinds of projects does Ryan Keelan Excavation do?
We generally do residential excavation, septic systems, community water systems, demolition occasionally, and a few commercial projects.
Where are your job sites located typically?
Where are they?
Yes.
They're usually located throughout Billings, mainly on the west end.
Do you ever have projects in Muscle County?
No, the only jobs we've ever done in Muscle Shell County is working at Signal Peak Coal Mine if they're in Muscle Shell County, but no, we don't usually work. We usually don't work outside of Yellowstone, a little bit into Carbon.
Okay. Do your job sites require roll-off garbage service?
We used to when we did demolition. We used them, but now we haven't used any for, I don't know, 5 years, I think. Kind of gave up on the demolition side.
And why did you give up on using a separate company for roll-off garbage service?
It just got to be too hard to get them. When we do demolition, we typically need, an average house is about 20 cans, 20 roll-off containers. And we usually need that amount in 2 to 3 days. And it got too hard to schedule. We'd only get one a day, so you can't spend a month tearing a house down.
Do you haul your own waste?
Yeah, we do now if we have some. Like I said, once it got too hard to get roll-offs, we didn't do enough just to justify buying my own truck, so I don't really bid any demolition anymore. It's too hard to do it in dump trucks and side dumps. Can't haul enough in them.
You just don't do demolition projects anymore because you can't get the roll-off service that you need.
Yeah, correct. We just kind of quit looking at them. It used to be we could get trucks, but now, like I said, last 5 years or so, we couldn't get them to commit, our own truck for a day, 2 days, up to a week, sometimes on the bigger projects. So I gave up looking.
If empty roll-offs application is approved in this process, would you consider using empty roll-offs to provide roll-off service for job sites on demolition projects?
Yeah, no, I would definitely look at it, and if they can give us a truck the time that we need it, then yeah, we'd start looking at bidding them again.
Do you support empty roll-offs application to enter the market and compete with Republic and McKenzie in terms of roll-off and construction and debris waste?
I do. I think that it's free market and anybody should be able to start a business. So
I have no further questions for this witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Keelan, can you hear me all right?
yes, I can hear you.
All right, terrific. Do you go by Ryan or Mr. Keelan? Which would you prefer?
Ryan's fine.
Okay. Ryan, my name is Lucas Forcell. I'm an attorney for Republic Services, and I just want to go through a couple of things you talked about and then maybe a couple other questions. So thank you for giving us your time today. I think I heard you say, just as a starting point, you haven't done any service that needed roll-offs in the last 5 years. Is that correct?
Correct. We used to do a fair amount of demolition, and we used Republic or Allied or whatever they were at the time to do them. But they changed the way they scheduled their cans being dropped off and picked up. So it got to be too big of a inconvenience. It took too long.
Thank you. And I think I heard you say that your need 5 years plus ago would have been something like 20 roll-off containers over a 2 to 3 day period. Does that sound correct?
Correct. I mean, that's an average house.
No, that's,
tear
that's,
down.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So I know you may not, I don't believe you were here for yesterday's testimony, Ryan. So you don't have the advantage of hearing what we've heard, but would it surprise you if I told you that empty roll-offs current plan includes starting with less than 20 roll-off containers?
Well, you only need 2 roll-off containers. You load one and they take that one to the dump and they drop you a fresh one off. So you need 2. So they continually come and get the one you just loaded and then take that one to the dump while you're loading the empty one they just dropped. So you don't have room for 20 containers. You only have room for probably 2 on the ground, sometimes 4, but generally you just use 2. One's being taken to the dump while you're loading the other one.
Perfect. So, and you, I think, got to the point that I was going to try to make is you don't need 20 all at the same time, or even 10 all at the same time. You really need 1 or 2, and you need to be able to swap them out fairly quickly. Is that, or fairly expediently? Is that a fair understanding?
Correct. Generally, you need a truck to run steady, and that's the problem. Nobody would give you a truck to run steady.
Okay, and again, this is 5+ years ago. Would it surprise you to know that Republic does have that service where you could have a truck sort of dedicated to you all day?
No, I won't use Republic because you got to call somewhere in Arizona now, and they're just a big company and they're hard to deal with. So every time we tried to talk to somebody, you have to get a hold of somebody in Arizona or somewhere else. We used to be able to talk to people here, and you'd call every day, check with your trucks, and it's
Thanks,
not like
Ryan.
that.
So just to make sure I got this buttoned up, Republic has a service that would meet your needs, but you don't want to work with them because their call center is located elsewhere. Is that correct?
That's correct. I've already went through trying to work for them.
Ryan, no, thank you. I appreciate that.
Let the witness answer his question.
I'm asking a yes or no question. I'm asking if what I said was correct or not, and I appreciate his answer very much. Thank you.
That's true. He was asking a yes or no question, and you have an opportunity of redirect to pursue that. Thank you. Proceed.
Ryan, I want to follow up on a couple of points generally that you had made earlier, and that is sort of the importance of the service and how you understand the needs of your potential needs or your needs 5 years ago. Is it fair to say that in that replacement of the roll-off throughout the course of the day for demolition purposes, is it fair to say that punctuality and availability are important?
Well, yeah, it is with any business.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Well, let's see, does your business have multiple employees or is it just you?
It's me and 1 other employee.
Okay, and if you or your other employee weren't there, would that potentially delay work?
Excuse me, I didn't hear that.
Sure, I'll say it again. So if you or your other employee were not present for a job, would that delay the progress of your work?
Well, yeah, if we're not on the job site.
Sure, okay. I think I heard you say it before, but I just want to make sure. I heard you say that the Keelan excavation typically operates in Yellowstone County, is that correct?
For the most part, yes. In
Now,
surrounding counties, yeah, sometimes Carbon, sometimes Stillwater.
Okay, thank you. Does your business operate year-round, Ryan?
Yeah, it's weather dependent.
Sure, I understood. So generally, maybe a lesser workload in the winter when the ground's frozen, is that correct?
If it's a harsh winter, it can slow you up, yes, but
okay. And then
typically,
summertime?
I
Yeah, I
do.
mean, we typically work all year when we can. The weather will shut us down. So it could be 12 months that we work, or it could be 10, so.
Thanks, Brian. So just to confirm, when was the last time you worked in any of these counties where Keeneland Excavation, or you personally for that matter, hired a third party for roll-off services?
I don't know the last time I hired roll-offs. It would have been Allied. And like I said, I think it was about 5 years ago, but I'm not sure.
Okay, thanks. Ryan, I'm gonna ask some, just a couple of follow-up questions, and just to make sure, I think it's probably gonna sound silly, but your business does not operate in Muscle County, and you don't live in Muscle County, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so is it fair to say that you can't tell us what the need for roll-off services would look like in those counties?
That's outside the scope of direct.
In Muscle County? I have no idea.
So what was the exact question?
The question was, sorry, Ryan, we're handling something on this end. The question was, given that Ryan does not live and does not work in Muscle County, is it fair to say that he cannot tell us anything about the need for roll-off services in that county?
Yes, I don't know anything about Muscle County, so no, I can't
One
say
second,
anything.
Ryan, sorry, the commission's got a rule in mind, the objection.
Yeah, it seems to me that Ms. Garrett did sort of open up the door about regionality of where his operations were. That he answered where he generally operates. So it seems to me that categorically that you're entitled to pursue this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So objection overruled.
Ryan, same question as the Golden Valley County. Is it because you don't live in Golden Valley County and you do not work in Golden Valley County? Is it fair to say that you can't inform us about the need for roll-off services in Golden Valley County?
No, I don't know where that county is. Are we going to keep asking silly questions? I can tell you about Carbon, Stillwater, or Yellowstone. That's where I work.
I'm moving on to those next. So just to confirm, you don't know what the need for roll-offs is in Golden Valley County?
No.
Thanks. All right, now to the three that you may have some more insight in. Let's start with Stillwater. You don't live in Stillwater County, correct?
No, I don't. I have a house that's currently for sale in Stillwater County that we just moved from, and now we live in Carbon County.
Okay, fair enough. And for the last 5 years, you've not provided services in Stillwater County that require roll-off services, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so for the last 5-year period, you can't tell us what the need for roll-offs was in Stillwater County, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Same question as the Carbon County. I understand that you live there now. Given that you have not
I did a job in Carbon County last year, and I tried to get a roll-off container for a house that had burnt down, and I could not get one up there, so we hauled it with a dump truck. So yes, I can say in Carbon County, we could not get a roll-off container in a timely manner.
Okay, and when you were working, thank you, that's helpful. When you were working in Carbon County, you said last year, so 2023.
It was either last year or the year before, I can't remember exactly.
Okay, so 2022 or 2023. What companies did you call for service? Did you call Republic?
Yeah, I believe I called Republic.
Okay, and did you call McKenzie?
No, I did not call McKenzie. McKenzie has never brought me a dumpster, so I don't ever call them.
Okay, and when you called Republic, what did they tell you?
They said that they would get back to me, and they never did. So their customer service is terrible, and that's part of the reason we don't use them. Plus, they won't bring us cans.
And so did you follow up with them when you did not receive a call back?
No, I'm not going to beg them to come do work for me. So they got a phone call, and that was it.
Okay, understood, appreciate it. Other than that one instance in 2022 or 2023, you've not been doing work in Carbon County for the last 5 years that require roll-off services, correct?
Correct.
So other than that one instance in 2022 or 2023, you can't tell us what the need for roll-off services was in Carbon County during that last 5-year period, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and now, same question as to Yellowstone County. You don't live in Yellowstone County, and you have not done work in Yellowstone County for the last 5 years that require roll-off services. So you cannot tell us what the public need was for roll-off services in Yellowstone County for the last 5 years, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Singh.
Questions?
Thank you. Right. Sure.
Mr. Keelan, Mr. Porcillo cut you off when you were trying to explain why you don't want to deal with Republic. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, you have to call, you end up talking to places in Phoenix, whether it be for dispatch or for billing. It used to be local, you just talk to the gals down at the office here and they would schedule it. But now if you take, and this is what my last experience with them, if you order a roll-off, you can't order that pickup of that roll-off until it's been delivered, which doesn't work if you want to run 6 to 10 of them a day. And if you need 20 of them, 30 of them, we've ran up to 100 before on different projects. You can't be making a phone call to schedule pickup when they drop it off. You need a truck steady. And that was a big problem, is nobody would give you a truck all day to do the work that we do. So if you need one dumpster a day, it works fine, but that's not the way any of our projects work.
Okay. And your last experience with Republic that you just mentioned, did you lose money or time on that project, or what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, it always costs way more money to haul stuff in dump trucks than it does in roll-offs. You can't compact them, reduce them in a dump truck because it's too hard on them. They set the container on the ground and, you can use the excavator to squish it in there and get a legal load on it. So yeah, it costs more money to do it that way, which is losing money.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Mr. Purcell?
Commissioner will have short recross.
Sure.
Lucas, yeah. One thing I heard you say just a moment ago, speaking with Ms. Garrett, I just want to make sure I heard you say this correctly. I think I heard you say that you couldn't order a pickup till delivered, and I think the words were you need a truck steady. Does that mean you would need a reliable truck during the course of a full day? Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we need 2 containers and the truck picks one up, goes and dumps it and brings one back.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Okay, commission staff?
No questions.
Okay. Commissioner Brown? I do have a question. So you said that on a particular job, you might even need like 100 dumpsters, but like 12 a day type of thing. Do you, and you have testified that allowing more competition in the marketplace would be a healthy thing. Do you think that, does it seem reasonable to you that any company can have enough dumpsters and enough drivers to dedicate one truck and one driver all day long, going back and forth? Do you think that's a reasonable thing to expect from such a company? Is that possible?
Well, yeah, absolutely. We hire dump trucks all the time and they give us a dump truck for a week straight. So I don't see why that would be unreasonable to have a company give you a truck for as long as you need it. It's all scheduling. They might have them, you'll have to find a window that it works for them, but generally, yes, you should be able to hire a truck for a day or 2 days or 3 days steady. And we do it all the time with dump trucks, side dumps, belly dumps. And that's not a problem.
Very good.
Because
Thank you,
there's enough competition out there that there's plenty of guys around. So you can, if one guy doesn't have them, you can call somebody else.
Very good. Thank you very much. That's all the questions that I have. Commissioner Lukacek, any questions?
No questions.
Very good. Well, thank you. Any further follow-up on those? Okay. Thank you. Ryan, thank you very much for your testimony. We really appreciate it. And you are permanently excused as a witness. Just thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Looks like he was talking to us from one of his pieces of machinery. It's convenient how they have these pieces of machinery with internet capabilities built into them. It's amazing how things have gone since the original John Deere's. Are you finished with your case in chief then?
Yeah, MT Loss will rest his case at this time.
Very good, thank you. Allied, you wish to initiate your case in chief?
Yes, please.
Thank you. You did reserve your opening statement, correct?
I did, correct.
And are you ready to do that now?
I am, if that's all right.
Very good, that's perfectly fine. Thank you.
I'll try to talk slowly this time. Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. I want to start with one of the applicant's own statements from yesterday. And that is, Montana roll-offs is just the name at this point. The criteria for certificates of public convenience and necessity in Class D matters is pretty clear. To determine whether issuing a certificate is appropriate, the commission evaluates the fitness of the applicant to perform the requested services, and then it separately asks whether doing so will serve a useful public purpose and be responsive to a public need, whether existing carriers can and will serve that public purpose without them service, and then whether the new service can serve that useful public purpose without endangering or impairing the operations of existing carriers, contrary to both standards. This determination ultimately is an inquiry into facts. The burden to prove these facts is solely on the applicant. And if the applicant fails to prove any of these elements, a certificate cannot be issued. The applicant has simply failed to meet its burden. And importantly, the applicant has failed to prove each of the four elements. So first, Montana MT roll-offs has not shown that it's fit to provide the service for which it's requesting authority.
Is this a motion for direct, I'm gonna object. This is argument, opening statement. It's for him to lay out his facts of his case, what he's gonna show in his evidence, not to argue our case.
Sustained.
I expect that at the conclusion of this hearing, MT roll-offs will have failed to show that it is fit to provide service for which it is requesting authority. Either it is fit to serve customers in this 5-county area, or it isn't. The applicant is asking the commission to declare that it's fit to serve an area that encompasses more than 120 square miles in Montana. It's asking the commission to declare that it is fit to serve approximately 17% of the state's population on the day that its application is approved. And according to the testimony that we've heard and the testimony that I believe we will expect to hear, it will not be possible for MT roll-offs to start providing that service if the commission grants its application. Nevertheless, it appears that it is asking the commission to declare that it's fit to serve this area and population without any of the following: any equipment, any investment of resources by its members, any commitment to invest resources by its members for that matter, any of the items required for bank financing, any employees besides one already busy running another business, any idea as to how much
I'm
equipment.
not objecting it, we're still doing argument.
I specifically began by talking about what I expect the facts will show by the conclusion of this hearing.
So that's a continuing prelude to everything you're going to say?
That is a correct statement, sir.
Okay, thank you. Proceed.
I believe the facts will show that there will not be any agreement as to how the business will be run. Any analysis of the market where it intends to operate, and finally, any business plan whatsoever. And so for those reasons and others that I expect you'll hear in the course of this hearing, it does not appear that the facts are going to show that MT Roll-Offs is going to be fit to perform that intended service. That's a threshold issue. In addition, I believe the facts are going to show that the applicant is not going to be able to meet its burden to show the public need. And while there's no magic number of shipper witnesses that's necessary to establish a public need, the commission has been pretty clear that isolated limitations of service and garden variety is sufficient to establish need, and I think the evidence at the conclusion of this hearing is going to show that those isolated limitations are the only type of limitations that have been discussed. Again, at the conclusion of this hearing, I believe the evidence will show that the only testimony we'll hear is from either shippers using a small portion of the service area, or perhaps friends or coworkers trying to help somebody that they knew. While that friendship may be admirable, that testimony is not going to be corroborated by any record. And the applicant's data responses are expected to show that it doesn't have any such records. And again, that's a failure to meet the burden. The testimony that you're going to hear from Republic's witnesses is expected to show that to the extent any limitation on service has occurred, it's been an isolated circumstance. Again, at the conclusion of this hearing, I expect the facts will show that the applicant has not showed that Republic, at least cannot, and will not meet public need. As an initial point, the applicant's data responses appear to show, and will show throughout the course of this hearing, that Republic has the resources to meet public need. As a result, the applicant would need to prove that Republic is unwilling to meet that public need. I do not expect that there will be any testimony thus throughout the course of this hearing that will show that Republic was unwilling to meet public need. While some witnesses may seem to believe that Republic is incapable of doing so, this testimony is directly contradicted by the applicant's admission that Republic can. I expect that the testimony you will hear from Republic's witnesses will show that Republic stands ready, willing, and able to meet that need service area. Finally, I expect that the evidence that you hear in this hearing will show that MT Roll-Offs has not made an attempt to show that it can provide the services without an adverse effect on existing certified garbage haulers. To evaluate the effect on existing haulers, this commission has previously stated that it's not enough to simply examine the concentration of a market share. The requirement is much larger than that, and it could include a number of different things, such as comparative operative market analyses, market concentration analyses, price and route comparisons, business plans, and I know with sufficient financial and route service options. I expect that at the conclusion of this hearing, none of these will have been presented. In fact, when we attempted to ask questions regarding these issues yesterday, it was objected that this topic was beyond the scope of the direct examination, and thus
We're making an argument today.
we're discussing the facts expected.
It's an open statement, I'm gonna object.
All right.
Any argument, any objections will run to the chair of this proceeding. You will not talk to each other directly. You will respect the decorum of proceeding. All right? No banter back and forth. Everything goes through the chair. Moving forward, you understand?
So restate your objection, please.
It's arguing about testimony that happened yesterday. What an opening statement is for him to lay out what he's going to demonstrate. He doesn't need to argue about what was presented yesterday. That's a closing argument. He's supposed to put on facts and talk about what facts he's going to present that either contradict or rebut the testimony that happened yesterday and this one.
Makes sense to me. Would you care to rephrase your?
May I address this?
Yes, sir, Mr. Singer.
I think Ms. Guerra is misstating opening statements. They are not forward-looking. They are looking at the case in the entirety. Protestants have no burden of proof. There's suggestion that we somehow have to talk about what we're going to show. We don't have to show anything. And the point that the applicant hasn't met their burden of proof is part of the opening statement. That's exactly what Mr. Forcella is talking about. I don't think there's anything improper about this argument. And I'm going to resist being confined in the same way.
Mr. Chairman, when you're ready, if I might be allowed to respond.
Mr. Karen, you have a response?
And so, correct, the applicant has the burden, Mr. Singer is correct, the applicant has the burden. And what essentially is happening is, or the way that it appears to me is that Mr. Forcella is making an argument for a directed verdict of some type based on the evidence that was presented. If he's got evidence to present in response to what was presented, I think that that's appropriate for an open statement. I mean, there's certainly some leeway there. I will abide by whatever ruling that the chair makes and respect those rulings going forward.
So apparently we have the Public Service Commission has no real definition of what is to be included or not included in an opening statement, but it does seem to me that what Ms. Garrett was saying, if I understand it correctly, that you're supposed to be laying out what you intend to prove. Referring back to what happened yesterday is not forward-looking, but backward-looking. It doesn't fit, it seems to me, in an opening statement of what you intend to present.
Yeah, response, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
So, with respect, and I think I echo Ms. Garrett's thoughts, which is, you know, I will abide by whatever decision the chair makes. I think that certainly an opening statement could be forward-looking and could be simply attempting to lay out the facts that will be presented. I don't think a opening statement is required to avoid legal topics that will be discussed in the case. It is not required to solely stick to facts. Now, certainly I cannot introduce evidence during the course of my opening statement, and I'm not attempting to do so. So nothing that I'm saying here should be taken as fact by the commission, because that's not what it's intended to do. It's not what its purpose is. The purpose is to lay out what a party's understanding of the case is, and where I'm making this discussion, where I'm making this statement yesterday before we began. I don't think I could tell you what wouldn't have been presented yesterday. However, we're 24 hours past that point. We now have the testimony as it sits in the record, and the commission will absolutely be able to examine that without any need for the party's characterization. But parties are generally allowed to characterize the evidence that will be presented in the course of a hearing or trial or what have you during the course of their opening and closing statements. The only difference typically in the closing is that the closing could comment on sort of what has been presented, and that's because the closing has occurred after the evidence has been presented. Here we find ourselves halfway through, or at least maybe 1/3 of the way through the presentation of the evidence. And I don't know that I am aware of any rule that would prohibit an opening statement from including a discussion of what's already been presented.
No, I appreciate that. It seems to me that what Ms. Garrett, my understanding of what she's saying is that instead of presenting the case yourself and arguing for the case yourself, that should be during the process for your witnesses and drawing the information out of them instead of making the statement yourself right now, arguing the case right now. But it seems to me that would be a proper way, and if you would, I would appreciate if you follow that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So,
Oh, thank you, Mr. Singer and Ms. Garrett, for that conversation. I appreciate it.
A moment to let my thoughts be.
Sure, of course.
So speaking to the remainder of this hearing, I believe that the evidence that you will hear will show that the elements needed both to receive a certificate and to operate a successful Class D business will be lacking. And I believe those missing elements will be shown to include a business plan, any analysis of expected revenues, any analysis of expected profits, an understanding of the necessary equipment or the potential customers, or any analysis by which the commission can evaluate the potential for harm. I expect that at the conclusion of this hearing, the commission will be able to determine that the applicant has failed to meet its burden as to all 4 elements. And specifically, each and every element of the Class D application. To the extent it has not already been discussed, we believe that the testimony you will hear from the public's witnesses will further erode the limited claims that have been presented so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You call your first witness.
Republic calls Chad Barr.
Hours out of all has been sworn.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Bauer, will you state the spelling name for the record, please?
Yes, Chad Bauer, Bauer.
And Mr. Bauer, where do you work?
I work for Republic Services.
Okay, what's your title?
I am the general manager for Eastern Montana.
Okay, does that region include the counties involved in this hearing?
Yes, it does.
Okay, how long have you been at that job?
I have been in the general manager's job for about 18 months.
Before that, did you also work for Republic?
Yes, I did.
Okay, in what other capacity?
I have worked for Republic, Allied and BFI for 30 plus years. My capacity has been municipal manager, government affairs, operations manager, safety manager, driver, equipment operator, container washer, pretty much every aspect of the garbage business.
There's really nothing you haven't done.
No, there is not.
So I'll ask maybe a silly follow-up question in that case, and then at least currently, in your current role, what are some of the duties currently for Republic?
My duties currently are to make sure that our employees are safe on a daily basis. They're to ensure our customers are getting service to their expectations. And it's to take care of our employees and take care of our customers and make sure that they have a good experience when they're working with Republic Services.
Broad mandate, is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about your background, Chad. Where'd you go to school?
I graduated from Big Sky High School and then I have some University of Montana.
Okay. Did you earn a degree from the University of Montana?
I did not.
Okay. Are you a member of any professional associations?
I'm a member of a number of professional associations.
Okay. Of those, any particular ones related to the garbage hauling industry?
Yes, I am the chairman of the DEQ Solid Waste Advisory Committee. I've spent a number of years on the Montana Solid Waste Contractors Association Board of Directors. They also sit on a governor-appointed wastewater pollution control advisory council.
Okay, and now to be clear, I want to make sure you and I are on the same page. Yesterday, there was a discussion about the distinction between garbage, solid, construction waste and debris. When I say garbage hauling industry, I mean the entire Class D industry as a whole. Is that
correct?
Okay. You know, in your experience, have you sort of specialized in the garbage hauling industry, or is this something broader than that?
I would say in my career, early in my career, it was just garbage. We have expanded to recycling, we've expanded to environmental services over the last couple of years, so it's a little bit of everything now.
Okay. This next question may be a bit challenging to answer given the length of your tenure in the industry, but what specific training do you have in the sort of class that you're in?
Oh boy, yeah, that is very hard to answer. I guess it's hard in a way, but over the years I have been through a number of courses, learning how to run recycling centers, learning how to run landfills, significant safety training, operations training. At least 3 or 4 times a year, I do go through some sort of continuing education for my positions that I was in.
Okay, so is it fair to characterize that as sort of regular continuing education?
Yes.
Okay, and across the breadth of the garbage industry? So safety training, employee relations, or how to work with your employees?
Correct.
Okay. Training on how to work with customers and customer satisfaction?
Correct.
Okay. So let's talk about broadly your time working with Republic. Have you attempted to understand Class D garbage hauling, Class D hauling market in Montana?
Yes.
Okay, and based on your multi-decade experience and observations, what can you tell us about what characterizes a successful Class D hauler?
That's a very challenging question because success can be looked at in multiple avenues, but I think, to generalize that question, a successful hauler is going to have the correct equipment, the number of employees, offering the services that their permit requires them to offer, along with making sure that to the best of their abilities, their customers and employees are taken care of, and they have the financial ability to move their business forward and continue moving it forward as long as they choose to be in business.
Sure, thanks. And that was a very broad question, so let me break down part of the pieces. So again, based on your experience and your time in the industry, what have you seen with regard to management of successful Class D haulers?
I've seen a little bit of everything. I've seen really good management structures for the larger corporations. I've also seen, great mom and pop operations that have just a single owner and a number of employees. It just kind of also depends on how big of an operation you are and where you're located. I've dealt with folks that on the eastern side of the state that they run a very successful garbage business, but they're also the town sheriff or a town mayor, or they do other things for their communities.
Sure. To touch on something I think you brought up, even the mom and pop shops with some employees, what I think I understand from that, correct me, does that mean that there is a single point of failure in those organizations?
There would not be a single point of failure in those organizations.
Not in a successful hauler?
Not in a successful hauling operation, there would not be.
Okay, and with employees then in mind, what do you see that sort of characterizes employees for a successful Class D hauler?
You need employees that are safe, they're courteous, they show up on time, they have the soft skills, so to speak, and they're willing to go do the job, and there has to be some flexibility in our operations as well. I mean, would we like to have everybody done in 8 hours or 10 hours a day? Absolutely. Are there days when whatever happens and they could be out there for 12 or 13 hours? Absolutely. Sure. So flexibility, courtesy, a clean driving record, those things all play into the employees.
And can you discuss what challenges have you observed, at least in the last few years, in terms of finding qualified candidates?
Oh boy, where to start? I think everybody's experienced a challenge of trying to find good qualified employees. A lot of the challenges that we get are folks that do not have a CDL license, or they've had something happen in their background where they would not pass a background check for our company. And then just trying to find folks that are willing and able to come to work and show up on time, and the applicant pool has not been great across the state of Montana, across the US for that matter, really since COVID.
How does the experience of those potential employees matter for a public?
In our situation, you know, if we find a good driver that's got a Class A CDL or a Class B that has a number of years of driving experience and a good clean safety record, those are the employees that we're looking for to hire that haven't had any issues in the past.
Okay, and would you say that that same or similar standard applies to other successful Class C haulers?
Absolutely.
Okay. You've been here for the last 2 days, so I think you've heard some of the testimony about different employees that might be required, but I want to touch on a couple. What can you tell us about the need for drivers in the garbage hauling industry? How important of a role is that?
I would say that it's probably our most important role. The drivers are really the face of our company. They're the ones that our customers see on a daily basis. They're the ones going up and down your streets. They're the ones talking to maybe a superintendent, maybe a school teacher, whoever it may be. Day in and day out, our drivers are the face of our company.
Okay. How about mechanics?
They're as equally as important as our drivers, because if we do not have equipment to operate, we can't get the garbage picked up and we can't satisfy our customers, and the mechanics do not have our trucks up and running and doing their job.
Okay. So you bring on new employees and then what is there, can you talk about, what does the training pipeline look like for new employees?
Specifically drivers or just in general?
Let's start with drivers.
Start with drivers, sure. So we go through a pretty extensive hiring process, background checks. And once the driver is through the background checks, and that we will actually officially make them an offer to start work for us. They will come in for a day of orientation, and then a couple days of getting familiar with who the people are, who their supervisors are, HR, going through their insurance, their benefits packages, those things. And then after that second or third day, we will put them with what we call a behind the wheel instructor, which is a trainer. And they go through a minimum of a 20-day training program with an instructor with them in that truck. And then at that point, all of this is recorded daily in a book by the behind the wheel instructor. At the end of that 20th day, that book is sent to our area safety team. And then we have a call either a day or two after that, depending on if we need more training with that driver or if we feel that driver's ready to go. So then the driver is interviewed by our area safety team, and ultimately at that point is when they're released to go do a route by themselves. There has been instances where we've had drivers that needed a couple more weeks of training to ensure that we felt that they were safe to be out on the street before we turn them loose.
So that, is it fair to say that the training is somewhat tailored to the individual?
The training is, I would say it's fair to say that the training is somewhat tailored to the individual, but it's also somewhat tailored to the piece of equipment they will be operating. So it's, for instance, if they are released on an industrial truck, which is what we're talking about in this hearing, if they were going to go drive a front load truck or a rear load truck or a side load truck, they would have to go through another 10 days of training in that piece of equipment before we would allow them to drive it.
Not all trucks, right?
Correct.
Okay. You mentioned that there's training for other employees as well. Aside from initial sort of onboarding type training, training for mechanics, what does that look like?
The training for the mechanics is more of the OSHA DOT certification of making sure that they know what has to be, how that truck has to be so it can go out on the street legally.
Okay.
You know, we do continuing education for our technicians as well. We had a tech center in Texas, Dallas, Texas, that we actually send our techs to. They do different types of training throughout the year. It could be air brakes, it could be energy, could be wiring systems, it could be heating systems, could be hydraulics, and those courses are scheduled throughout the year. And we do send our techs to those trainings when they're available if we need to have a tech certified in something that they're not currently certified in.
Okay. What can you tell us about the experience needed to run a successful garbage hauling company?
Well, being in this business for 30 years, I guess there's more than one way to skin a cat, but I have seen some very successful businesses fall, and I've seen some businesses that you wouldn't think would be successful actually become successful. And I think, again, it's your management, your people, your financial wherewithal to make sure that you can take care of your equipment, your customers, your people. Again, it's more of a team concept. I would look at it that way, that if your team is not working well together, if you have one piece of that team that breaks off, it could cause failure.
Sure, thank you. How about the finances needed? What can you tell us about the finances needed to form and begin a successful Class D company?
I will tell you that Class D garbage hauling is a huge capital investment to initially get off the ground and get moving. We heard testimony yesterday of trucks costing $250,000. I will tell you, we've got trucks that cost $300,000, $400,000, depending on the amount of equipment that you need, whether it be containers or dumpsters or carts. You know, you're talking anywhere from a minimum of as we heard yesterday, $500,000 up to $6, $7, $8 million just in initial capital to get the business off the ground.
Okay. In addition to that initial investment, what about ongoing capital costs?
Things break, things get damaged, things get destroyed, and you also have growth. So you have to have enough funds to continue to buy equipment, buy more boxes, and ensure that you have that product available for the customer's demand.
Okay. And you may have touched on this a little bit already, but what about unexpected costs?
There are a number of unexpected costs out there, and you have to have financial reserves to make sure that you can continue to operate your business for any problem that may arise.
Okay. I think you were sitting here earlier today and you probably heard some of the testimony about it, but in your opinion, your experience, how many dumpsters can one hauling truck reasonably be expected to service in any given day?
That's an interesting question because there are so many factors that fall into that. I will say 2 to 15 industrial boxes a day would be reasonable, and that is based off of distance from where you're hauling. Are they close to the landfill? Are you hauling trailers? Are you just hauling a single truck? So, when I say 2, I'll use the example of we haul special waste and asbestos from Billings to Great Falls. That driver can literally only haul 2 boxes a day, and that's one box on the truck, 1 box on the trailer. In the time allotted to go to Great Falls, to dump the landfill, and get back to Billings, it's about a 10-hour day.
Okay. And again, sort of maybe an obvious question, but how does this change if the hauler has multiple lots of one site? For instance, some for recycling and some for construction.
We currently have a number of sites in this market where we have multiple boxes on site. And it's the same. I mean, if that customer needs service, if they have 2 of their boxes that need service, we'll go get 2. If they need all 4 service, we'll go get 4. So it's kind of dependent on what the needs of the customer are when we schedule the hauls.
Okay. How common is it that these trucks or the roll-offs themselves will need repairs?
I would say it's fairly common that, and maybe it's not so much that the trucks need repairs as we do. We have a service program on all our vehicles that X hours they get an oil change, X hours they get arm grease, X hours they get a full service. And our trucks are DOT certified, they're annually inspected on a yearly basis. So it just kind of depends on when the hours hit for those services, what they need. And they're also looking for other things. So, they're trying to be proactive in catching wiring that may be frayed or loose, hydraulic leaks, oil leaks, things like that they'll catch on a service, and will get repaired at that point in time. Now, there's always unexpected breakdowns. We travel a lot of miles, and we travel a lot of miles on dirt roads and potholes and things like that. So, you do have things that will break on those trucks. And it's a mechanical piece of equipment, and at some point in time, it's gonna fail.
Sure. And that's what the mechanics are for?
Correct.
Okay. How about, it's been a decade or so since I've been in the construction world, but what about the repairs to the dumpsters? If you're putting construction waste and debris in, what does that do to the dumpsters?
It really, the waste itself is not the problem most of the time with what we have to repair on those. Most of the time with our construction and demo boxes, it's a contractor hitting the side of it with a excavator and poking a hole in it, blowing the back doors out because the box was overloaded, dumping big chunks of concrete in it, things like that. But we do have a full-blown repair shop at our facility, and we have welders that we keep on staff to repair our metal roll-out boxes and containers.
Okay. You mentioned overloading and then the sort of big chunks of concrete. Is there a weight limits that are associated with these containers?
There are. We cannot legally haul anything over 10 tons.
Okay. Does that restrict the type of containers that can be used for construction waste and debris?
It does, depending on the job and the site. We may, they may want a 20-yard or 30-yard or 40-yard container, and we will assess what material they're putting into it before we commit to a 20, 30, or 40-yard container based on that. Or even 10 yards we use for concrete jobs because concrete is so heavy.
Okay. I heard you mention earlier the transportation of asbestos pipe. What can you tell us about how that process works, specific to Republic?
Specific to Republic, so our industrial drivers are certified to haul asbestos. We are not certified to remove asbestos and package it. So when we put an asbestos box on a job site, we can supply the liner for the roll-off box, but a lot of times the contractor who is doing that job will already have their liners, or they will have the asbestos bagged and properly managed prior to putting it in our roll-off boxes, so we can legally transport it to the disposal facility.
So, make sure I got that correctly. This is not a special roll-off that's needed for asbestos pipes, correct?
That is correct. We use our roll-off box is a roll-off box. We can put anything from MSW, which is municipal solid waste, to asbestos pipe in the same box.
Sure. So what we're really talking about is a qualified driver, and then the liner, whether it's provided by Republic or the customer.
Correct. There are rules that we have to follow from the state and the federal regulatory agencies as to how we transport that waste.
Okay, thank you. You've got a binder in front of me. I want you to flip to exhibit page 3.
B as in boy.
B as in boy. So, just briefly,
Page 3, I'm sorry.
page 3, that's correct. And just briefly, if you look at page 1, you recognize what this is. I don't think that we started, I just want to make sure.
Yes, it's the application.
Yep, well,
Or, excuse me, it's the motion for leave to amend the
yeah,
application.
MT Roloff's motion for leave to amend its application. So if you look back at the top of page 3, there's a big paragraph out there. The applicant states in that paragraph, the keys to providing, the keys are, to provide a quick response time, flexible scheduling, and an ability to adapt to individual shipper needs. With these observations in mind, based on the discussion that we just had about what it takes to be a successful garbage hauler, what can you tell us about the prospects of MT Roloffs being effective at providing these services?
I personally would have a very hard time really answering that question because I do not have a lot of the information that it would take for me to analyze and justify whether the business makes sense or not at this point in time.
Okay, and we'll circle back to that in a little bit, but just in broad strokes, what type of information are you considering that you think is lacking?
Well, number one is a business plan. I personally, from my experience, I am not sure how you service 5 counties with 1 truck and the original application of 14 boxes. To me, that is physically impossible to do that. The other part of it is the financial side of it. The equipment, do you have enough equipment to service the folks that are going to request this service? You know, we've had Class D permits for years and years and years. And the rule of thumb has always been if you have a Class D permit, you offer service to everybody in those areas. And I can't tell you without knowing exactly what they're looking to do if they could do this. I personally, with my business knowledge and being in the business, it would almost be impossible for them to service 5 counties.
Okay. Let's change tacks a little bit and talk about public need and the prospective service area. So, big picture, when a potential customer calls Republic looking for a dumpster, a roll-off, specifically for construction waste and debris, how does that request get addressed?
So there's a couple of ways that will get addressed. The first one is they will call, we do have national call centers across the US. They will call the call center, inquire about getting an industrial box. That information will be uploaded into our computer systems. It goes to a salesperson or dispatch who will then reach out. A local construction, we have a local construction account manager in Billings that all she specializes in is industrial boxes for construction and demolition. So that number will get to her. She will reach out personally to that customer, figure out what their needs are. She will do a quote for services. And then at that point, if they accept the quote, then we will schedule deliveries and exchanges of their boxes. We also have an online application. It's an app where people can go in and request services from us on the app. And that will also route to local dispatch.
Okay, so really regardless of how they place the initial request, whether it's a call or online application, it gets passed to a local service representative?
Correct, our customers, our construction account manager.
Construction account manager, thank you. You know, and I get that this may vary over time, but if you had to estimate an average wait time from when a customer requests a dumpster to when they receive it, assuming that they want it served in as soon as possible time, how long is that wait time on average?
24 to 72 hours.
Okay. And is there a sort of busy versus slow season for C&D?
Oh, absolutely. It gets very busy. Springtime, when the sun comes out, the contractors start getting very busy and continues through the summer. And it's totally weather dependent. It could shut off in October if we have a bad snowstorm. Like this year, a lot of our contractors that we do business with, we're still running in December.
Sure. And that busy versus slow season, does that impact the amount of time that they get that average wait time?
I would say that the average wait time is still fairly consistent to that 24 to 72 hours, for us to get boxes out to our customers and start the process of what they need moving forward.
Okay. Then let's fast forward a little bit. Once that box is full, how is the request to empty it addressed?
Most of the time, the folks will call either our CAM, who is the construction account manager, directly to schedule service on those boxes. A lot of times it's been pre-scheduled, so they're doing a job, they want service Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so we service them Monday, Wednesday, Friday until they're done with their project. So a couple of different ways that it can actually work, and then there's times when it's where I would say a very small, maybe it's a one-off temporary box where a contractor calls in, they need the box for a remodel job, but they don't fill it up for 30 to 45 days. That contractor will call back either to our account manager or the call center to schedule service.
Okay. If I don't want to put words in your mouth, is it fair to distinguish those two methods as either sort of on demand versus scheduled?
I think that's fair to an extent. I think I would just say that on demand is when a customer, maybe something goes wrong with scheduled service and they need an extra day in there. And they call up and say, hey, I know I'm scheduled Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Can I get a Tuesday service? I would call that on demand service. Or to the point of a smaller contractor or somebody that maybe only has their box hauled once every 4 or 5 weeks. When they call up, I would consider that on-demand service because it's not scheduled ahead of time.
Sure. And what about if a customer says, no, I need a box. I need something that's going to be responsive to my needs. I need those 20 boxes that Ryan was talking about earlier today. Is there an option for those customers?
There is. We have done numerous dedicated driver projects over the years that I'm aware of across the state. The most recent one that I can think of that we've done here, there was a fire at the Harley Davidson shop in Red Lodge, and they were doing a demo of that building. We had a dedicated driver there, one driver hauling truck and trailer for 5 days, I believe, might have been 7.
Okay.
But we gave him that driver for the entire week. He was there Monday morning, and that's all he did.
But when you say that's all he did, he drove back and forth between the site and the dump.
From Red Lodge to the landfill here and back and forth all day. That was what he did for those days. So yes, we will work with our customers if they need a dedicated driver and service.
Okay. So we've talked about requests. How about if there's complaints? How are those complaints addressed?
Very much the same way that our scheduling is addressed. A customer can call the customer service center. A complaint gets entered into the system. Depending on the scale of the complaint or the escalation of the complaint, it could go to a couple of different places. They could go in as an F2 note on their account, which we have our logistics analysts and operations teams looking at every day. We have what we call our NPS system, that those escalations will go in and I will get a copy of that complaint to address. And then also folks can call our account managers. The one thing that, yes, we do operate a call center, but we also are very good about making sure that our contractors or our industrial customers have a direct line to our office here.
Okay, so it sounds like multiple methods by which a complaint could be submitted.
Correct.
Okay. Now, we've heard in the last couple of days some discussions about complaints for the waiting for roll-off boxes. In the last several years, have contractors been forced by Republic to wait weeks for pickups at job sites?
I would need to go back through and look at every account that we've had, but I would say, over the course of the last, I can tell you over the course of the last 18 months since I've been here, weeks would not, no, they've not waited weeks to get service.
Okay, if you had to estimate what the average wait time would be for service when they called it in, what would you say is an average wait time
from the time that they've called in asking for service?
48 to 72 hours at the most. Sometimes we can do same day.
Okay. Now, understanding things come up, if for whatever reason a customer had requested service and was scheduled for service and something came up, what's the process by which that's resolved?
So we would, first off, the driver, we have tablets in all of our vehicles. Depending on the instance, he would get a hold of their logistics analyst now, formerly known as dispatchers, or their direct supervisor to say, I cannot pick this up, I may be broke down. At that point, we initiate a phone call to that contractor, that customer, and say, we are not going to get there today. We can get you rescheduled for tomorrow or the following day, depending on the needs of that customer. And hopefully that resolves the issue at that point. But there are instances where a truck will break down and we have to move 3 boxes to the next day because of that.
Understood. So now, yesterday we heard testimony from one witness regarding a multi-month delay in Red Lodge. Do you recall that testimony?
I do.
Okay. What can you tell us about the events at Red Lodge over the last couple of years that have caused transportation and hauling issues?
So the specific instance that he was talking about yesterday was during the big flood in Red Lodge at that point in time. And we were working with the city of Red Lodge, FEMA, to try to get emergency services opened back up to the town of Red Lodge. There was 2.5 feet of rock sitting in Main Street in downtown Red Lodge. So, you know, we did have a number of probably 30 or 40 of our industrial boxes out there at that point in time that we were trying to just get the city of Red Lodge taken care of. I'm not 100% sure if this is the same customer that we were talking about or not. When that flood went through, it did wash a number of roads out. So we did have some customers that waited 30 days to get their box hauled, but it was due to the fact that we had to have those customers rebuild their roads so we could get our trucks in there to service those boxes.
So in those cases, it's not Republic that's causing the delay, correct?
No, it was an act of God. It was a flood.
And even on the roads that weren't completely washed out, what can you tell us about the type of obstructions that Republic encountered in the lodge?
I mean, there were boulders in the middle of the road. There were trees down in the middle of the roads. We just could not, I mean, they could not physically get anything other than a front loader and a dozer in there to try to remove the debris, and we're filling up roll-off boxes as fast as we could to move that product out of the city so they could open it back up.
Sure. I think I heard you say earlier, something like 30 to 40 roll-offs just for the city itself.
Mm-hmm.
Despite that support to the city and FEMA, did Republic run short of roll-offs during that period?
No, we did not.
Okay. Despite that support, did Republic run short of drivers during that period?
No, we did not.
So to be clear, Republic was still able to service C&D customers in the area during that period, provided that the roads were passable.
Correct.
Okay. For the particular shipper that testified yesterday, do you recall anything unusual about his requests for service?
Nothing unusual. You know, he's a shipper that I'm familiar with, and he has a tendency to call up and order a box or call up for service and then cancel for one reason or another. So but nothing out of the ordinary.
Okay. In your opinion, again, sort of based on your long experience in the garbage hauling industry, have contractors over the last few years been facing, and I'm quoting, unreasonably long delays for roll-off container delivery, pickups, and retrieval?
In my opinion, no.
Okay. Are roll-off customers in this area required to enter into any sort of long-term contract to receive roll-off services?
No, they're not required to enter into a long-term contract. We do require them to sign a customer service agreement that states the rates that were quoted and what we will charge them to haul it, but no long-term contracts.
Okay. Again, big broad picture here. We've talked a lot about the need for construction waste and debris roll-off services in this 5-county area. In your opinion, based on your experience, can Republic meet this need?
Yes, we can.
Okay, what has Republic done to show that it's willing to?
I think it's just our basic business model, you know, every year we are adding more equipment, more trucks, more drivers, to assess to move forward with the needs of the communities that we service. You know, a number of years ago, we had 5 industrial trucks in Billings. We now have 10 industrial trucks. We have more than 10 drivers that are certified to drive those vehicles. You know, we continually upgrade and buy containers, roll-off containers every year. And it could be a multitude of the sizes, 10, 20, 30, 40 yards, just depending on what we see as the need, what we experienced the year before. You know, how many more do we need and what's the growth been?
And Republic is Republic let me rephrase that question. What kind of effort is Republic making to analyze the needs going forward?
We look at it on a daily basis of what we need to do to satisfy our customers and what we need to do to service our customers. So we look at that information on a daily basis, and we're always adjusting routes and schedules and rerouting and moving things around to ensure that we can keep up with the growth that's happening in some of our areas.
Okay. So just to be clear, is Republic willing to meet the public need?
Yes.
And to the extent that you have to, Republic relies in part on a customer to let them know that there is need, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Based on your experience in the garbage hauling industry, the C&D industry specifically, is this 5-county area a large service area?
Yes, it's a huge service area.
Okay. Is it a complex service area?
I would say yes, it is a complex service area just because of the fact that you have a majority of the population in one county, and you've got a very small county, and then you've got the distances between those counties. So I would say it is a somewhat complex service area.
Fair enough. What effect would empty roll-offs have if they were granted the certificate on Republic's ability to provide services?
You know, again, I'll revert back to what I said earlier. I don't know what kind of effect they would have on our business at this point, because I'm not sure what they're actually trying to do.
Fair enough. If empty rolls had provided a business plan, what kind of information would you need to effectively evaluate the effect of that on Republic?
Once again, I would look at the equipment, the number of trucks, the number of boxes, you know, what their service area looks like, and I could assess at that point, you know, would we be looking at them trying to compete or take our customers in those certain areas, and what would the kind of the dollar amount be if in the future if we expected them to take that business, what that might be.
Okay, so related question then, to evaluate the effect that their entry would have on the market, have you conducted a comparative operative market analysis?
I would say no, I haven't, because I don't have any of their information, so I can't compare what we're doing currently to what they're doing.
Okay, and how about a market concentration analysis?
No, we have not done that either in regards to that, because again, I do not have any of their information.
Okay, price and route comparisons?
Not sure how many routes they're running or what their pricing is.
Okay, and how about evaluating a comparison between their and your business plan regarding route and service options?
Again, I can't compare something I do not have.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
No questions for this witness. Thank you.
Break the
Well, how long do you expect your examination to take?
It depends, this is a terrible answer, but 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay. To be frank, the problem is that our lunch is being delivered anywhere from 12:08 to 12:23. And it's pizza, so which is a very heat sensitive issue. Not being a bachelor, I haven't had cold pizza for a long time, and wish to avoid that. And so that gives like a 10 minutes type of thing, but there's nothing productively that we can do within that 10 minutes. So let's go ahead and break now for lunch, and we will resume and 10 minutes after 1. Authorize